Lady Chatterley's lover. Continuation with me, Morale Bernard. So, let's make cider of ourselves, said Charlie. But what do you think of Bolshevism? Put in the brown berry, as if everything had led up to it. Bravo, roared Charlie. What do you think of Bolshevism? Come on, let's make hay of Bolshevism, said Jukes. I'm afraid Bolshevism is a large question, said Hammond, shaking his head seriously. Bolshevism, it seems to me, said Charlie, is just a superlative hatred of the thing they call the bourgeois. And what the bourgeois isn't quite defined. It is capitalism, among other things. Feelings and emotions are also so decidedly bourgeois that you have to invent a man without them. Then the individual, especially the personal man, is bourgeois, so he must be suppressed. You must submerge yourself in the greater thing, the Soviet social thing. Even an organism is bourgeois, so the ideal must be mechanical. The only thing that is a unit, non-organic, composed of many different yet equally essential parts, is the machine. Each man a machine part, and the driving power of the machine, hate of the bourgeois. That to me is Bolshevism. Absolutely, said Tommy. But also, it seems to me a perfect description of the whole of the industrial ideal. It's the factory owner's ideal in a nutshell, except that he would deny that the driving power was hate. Hate, it is all the same. Hate of life itself. Just look at these Midlands. If it isn't plainly written up, but it's all part of the life of the mind, it's a logical development. I deny that Bolshevism is logical. It rejects a major part of the premises, said Hammond. My dear man, it allows the material premise, so does the pure mind, exclusively. At least Bolshevism has got down to rock bottom, said Charlie. Rock bottom? The bottom that has no bottom? The Bolsheviks will have the finest army in the world in a very short time, with the finest mechanical equipment. But this thing can't go on. This hate business. There must be a reaction, said Hammond. Well, we've been waiting for years. We wait longer. Hate's a growing thing like anything else. It's the inevitable outcome of forcing ideas onto life, of forcing one's deepest instincts. Our deepest feelings we force according to certain ideas. We drive ourselves with a formula, like a machine. The logical mind pretends to rule the roost, and the roost turns into pure hate. We're all Bolshevists, only we are hypocrites. The Russians are Bolshevists without hypocrisy. But there are many other ways, said Hammond, than the Soviet way. The Bolsheviks aren't really intelligent. Of course not. But sometimes it's intelligent to be half-witted, if you want to make your end. Personally, I consider Bolshevism half-witted, but so do I consider our social life in the West half-witted. So I even consider our far-famed mental life half-witted. We're all as cold as cretins. We're all as passionless as idiots. We're all of us Bolsheviks, only we give it another name. We think we're gods. Men like gods. It's just the same as Bolshevism. One has to be human and have a heart and a penis if one is going to escape being either a god or a Bolshevist, for they are the same thing. They're both too good to be true. Out of the disapproving silence came Berry's anxious question. Do you believe in love then, Tommy? Don't you? You lovely lad, said Tommy. No, my cherub, 9 times out of 10, no. Love's another of those half-witted performances today. Fellas with swaying waist, fucking little jazz girls with small boy buttocks, like 2 collar studs. Do you mean that sort of love? Or the joint property make a success of it? My husband and my wife sort of love? No, my fine fellow, I don't believe in it at all. But you do believe in something. Me? Oh, intellectually, I believe in having a good heart, a chirpy penis, a lively intelligence, and the courage to say shit in front of a lady. Well, you've got them all, said Barry. Tommy Jukes roared with laughter. You angel boy. If only I had. If only I had. No, my heart's as numb as a potato. My penis droops and never lifts its head up. I dare rather cut him clean off than say shit in front of my mother or my aunt. They are real ladies, mind you. And I'm not really intelligent. I'm only a mental lifer. It would be wonderful to be intelligent. Then one would be alive in all the parts mentioned and unmentionable. The penis rouses his head and says, "How do you do?" to any really intelligent person. Renoir said he painted his pictures with his penis. He did too, lovely pictures. I wish I did something with mine. God, when one can only talk. Another torture added to Hades, and Socrates started it. There are nice women in the world, said Connie, lifting her head up and speaking at last. The men resented it. She should have pretended to hear nothing. They hated her admitting she had attended so closely to such talk. My God, if they be not nice to me, what care I how nice they be? No, it's hopeless. I just simply can't vibrate in unison with a woman. There's no woman I can really want when I'm faced with her. And I'm not going to start forcing myself to it. My God, no. I'll remain as I am and lead the mental life. It's the only honest thing I can do. I can be quite happy talking to women, but it's all pure, hopelessly pure, hopelessly pure. What do you say, Hildebrand, my chicken? It's much less complicated if one stays pure, said Berry. Yes, life is all too simple. On a frosty morning, with a little February sun, Clifford and Connie went for a walk across the park to the wood. That is, Clifford chuffed in his motor car and Connie walked beside him. The hard air was still sulphurous, but they were both used to it. Round the near horizon went the haze, opalescent with frost and smoke, and on the top lay the small blue sky, so that it was like being inside an enclosure, always inside. Life always a dream or a frenzy inside an enclosure. The sheep coughed in the rough, sere grass of the park, where frost lay bluish in the sockets of the tufts. Across the park ran a path to the woodgate, a fine ribbon of pink. Clifford had had it newly gravelled with sifted gravel from the pit bank, when the rock and refuse of the underworld had burned and given off its sulphur. It turned bright pink, shrimp-coloured on dry days, darker crab-coloured on wet. Now it was pale shrimp colour, with a bluish-white hoar of frost. It always pleased Connie, this underfoot of sifted bright pink. It's an ill wind that brings nobody good. Clifford steered cautiously down the slope of the knoll from the hall, and Connie kept her hand on the chair. In front lay the wood, the hazel thicket nearest, the purplish density of oaks beyond. From the wood's edge rabbits bobbed and nibbled. Rooks suddenly rose in a black train and went trailing off over the little sky. Connie opened the wood gate and Clifford puffed slowly through into the broad riding that ran up an incline between the clean, whipped thickets of the hazel. The wood was a remnant of the great forest where Robin Hood hunted, and this riding was an old thoroughfare coming across country. But now, of course, it was only a riding through the private wood. The road from Mansfield swerved round to the north. In the wood, everything was motionless. The old leaves on the ground keeping the frost on their underside. A jay called harshly. Many little birds fluttered, but there was no game, no pheasants. They had been killed off during the war, and the wood had been left unprotected. Till now, Clifford had got his gamekeeper again. Clifford loved the wood. He loved the old oak trees. He felt they were his own thorough generation. He wanted to protect them. He wanted this place inviolate, shut off from the world. The chair shuffled slowly up the incline, rocking and jolting on the frozen clods. And suddenly on the left came a clearing where there was nothing but a ravel of dead bracken, a thin and spindly sapling leaning here and there, big sawn thumbs, showing their tops and their grasping roots lifeless, and patches of blackness where the woodmen had burnt the brushwood and rubbish. This was one of the places that Sir Geoffrey had cut during the war for trenched timber. The whole knoll, which rose softly on the right of the riding, was denuded and strangely forlorn. On the crown of the knoll, where the oaks had stood, now was bareness, and from there you could look out over the trees to the colliery railway and the new works at Stack's Gate. Connie had stood and looked. It was a breach in the pure seclusion of the wood. It let in the world, but she didn't tell Clifford. This denuded place always made Clifford curiously angry. He had been through the war, had seen what it meant, but he didn't get really angry till he saw this bare hill. He was having it replanted, but it made him hate Sir Geoffrey. Clifford sat with a fixed face as the chair slowly mounted. When they came to the top of the rise, he stopped. He would not risk the long and very jolty down slope. He sat, looking at the greenish sweep of the riding downwards, a clear way through the bracken and oaks. It swerved at the bottom of the hill and disappeared. But it had such a lovely, easy curve of knights riding and ladies and palfreys. I consider this is really the heart of England, said Clifford to Connie, as he sat there in the dim February sunshine. Do you? She said, seating herself in her blue knitted dress on a stump by the path. I do. This is old England, the heart of it, and I intend to keep it intact. Oh, yes, said Connie. But as she said it, she heard the 11 o'clock hooters at Stack's Gate Colliery. Clifford was too used to the sound to notice. I want this wood perfect, untouched. I want nobody to trespass on it, said Clifford. There was a certain pathos. The wood still had some of the mystery of wild old England, but Sir Geoffrey's cuttings during the war had given it a blow. How still the trees were, with their crinkly, innumerable twigs against the sky, and their grey, obstinate trunks rising from the brown bracken. How safely the birds flitted among them, and once there had been deer, and archers, and monks padding along on the asses. The place remembered, still remembered. Join me for the next video of Lady Chatterley's Lover. Join me for the next video of Lady Chatterley's Lover. This is Morel Bernard saying bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.